So I see, yeah, we have number 2, number 1, no, number 2, number 5, number 7. Yeah. So this week we talk about mindfulness practice can be applied for the vet, right? For the servicemen and so forth, right? Okay, let's start with Scarlett. How you doing, Scarlett?
I'm good. How are you?
You stay home or you go somewhere else for Thanksgiving holiday?
I stay home. I have off of work.
You work on Thanksgiving holiday?
I usually no, I work on Thursdays, but I'll get off this week. So,
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, number 1, please.
okay, so number one says articulate how the US military veterans can utilize mindfulness practice in dealing with negative mental health impact by cumulative traumas such as PTSD, depression, and substance use abuse problems effectively. So I said that, first of all, exposure to traumatic events can lead to the development of many mental health problems that can compound and multiply. So, as well as a reduced quality of life. And some of the most common problems are PTSD, major depressive disorder, substance use disorders, and anxiety. And veterans can utilize mindfulness practice to cultivate awareness of their mental state, shifting from ruminating thoughts to the present moment. And this can effectively help people cope with the negative impacts of cumulative traumas by increasing their ability to accept their issues, accept their feelings and emotions for what they are instead of avoiding them. And for veterans, cultivating awareness of their mental states allows them to acknowledge and accept their experiences without judgment. And this will allow them to not be so self critical that they keep going back to these moments in time. And then mindfulness assists in remaining grounded, processing intrusive memories, and mitigating emotional numbing symptoms that are associated with PTSD. And also, veterans can use programs, mindfulness programs like MBSR, but I think there's questions about that later on. And MBSR is shown to be negatively correlated with PTSD related avoidance, and it leads to improvements in PTSD symptoms. And then also, I just had that group mindfulness sessions can provide a community of support for these veterans with people that also share some of the same traumas and PTSD. And then that veterans can develop mindfulness skills to manage cravings and cope with the stressors that might come with making choices and making healthy coping mechanisms that will help them alleviate some of their reliance on substances.
So do you know why do they have the PTSD?
Yeah, so a lot of veterans have PTSD just from traumatic events in war. I know for a lot of military, they'll have some type of injury or some type of very traumatic experience that they'll keep reliving. And especially for those, let's say you lose an arm or a leg in the war, that will just be a constant reminder. And your injuries will be a constant reminder of that moment in time. And for a lot of them, they'll just be brought back into that moment over and over again, reliving basically the experience that set them into PTSD.
And when you have family members that serve in the militaries, yeah, or you have look, they still
Yeah,
serve
one of my grandparents served. They're retired,
all the time.
but they served.
So how did they do when they come back?
I think they were placed in the Vietnam War, but I don't think they had any type of like PTSD or anything from that.
Oh, okay. So they came back from Vietnam, huh?
Hmm.
Wow. They still survive? They're still here with you?
Yes.
They're in the 70s now, right? They are around 70s now, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Amber, you have any family members that serve?
Yeah, my dad, he served long before I was born. Um, I think he did it. I think he did it as like once he got out of high school and he spent a majority of his 20s in the military and then he retired and went to firefighting instead.
Where did he serve? In Iraq or Middle East?
I think he was stationed in Italy for 2 years and then I think he went to South Korea at some point. So he was just kind of on and off at different places.
So, so he's healthy. He's still healthy now, right?
Yes. He doesn't, or at least not that I know of, he doesn't have any like issues with his time in the military.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So go ahead, Emily, number one, please.
My dad was similar to Amber. He went into the Navy after high school, and that was like way before I was born. So I'm not sure what all went down, but he was in the Navy for a while.
So he, where did he serve? Where did he go?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but he was in it.
So he's out now?
Yeah.
So he's working at the civilian now, right?
I think he does software engineering.
Oh,
I think in the Navy he did a lot of like electrical work. So kind of.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, please, number one.
Okay. I said, through studies on the relationship between mindfulness and PTSD, it was found that mindfulness is negatively correlated with the severity of PTSD-related avoidance, and it leads to an improvement in PTSD symptoms, depression, depressive symptoms, and quality of life. Veterans can utilize mindfulness for similar results. Mindfulness can build upon a U.S. military veteran's ability to be more aware and accepting of their mental state. In doing so, it allows them to gradually shift attention away from repetitive negative thinking patterns shaped by their time in the military. Focusing on a presence in the moment would help to remain grounded during difficult moments. Furthermore, a non-judgmental acceptance of the moment will help to ease symptoms as well. It takes away from the urge to avoid or fight against intrusive or harmful thoughts, which worsens them and makes them more likely to occur often. By accepting thoughts, sensations, and feelings, there is no attempt made to escalate them. The main goal of teaching veterans to practice mindfulness is to ensure that they can depend on themselves to calm down, and so that they do not need to depend on substance abuse or other harmful coping mechanisms. And yeah.
So, even when you watch the violent movies, especially the shooting movie, right? After watching those kind of movies, so somehow we have a lot of anxiety, right? I'm not talking about when you really in the battlefield. You are on the front line, and you're supposed to take down enemies, or they may shoot you down. Right? That's life and death if you're in the front line. And many veterans, when they get back, we still remember those type of shooting, killing, hurting, violence, and so forth, right? Just many of them, they have nightmare. And that's why if there's no way for them to let go of those thoughts, come back again and again in their life. In our Buddhist tradition, when we're not talking about this lifetime, let's say if they shoot out some, let's say even enemies, right? But those type of spirit still follow you, still haunt you. I don't know whether in Christian tradition they may have this type of understanding or this type of view or not. Do they have that? In prison edition, you have that type of views that the spirit, even the spirit of your enemy may haunt you. You have that kind of view or no? What do you think? Look, do you have that kind of view?
What type of view on what? I'm sorry.
The spirit of your enemy may come back and haunt you.
No, I don't really have that view.
No, in Buddhist tradition, no. Yeah, in Buddhist tradition, because we talk about reincarnation, where the spirit may follow and haunt you.
I mean, if you want to like compare that spirit to like maybe some prior stresses and anxieties.
kind of, but this, yeah, kind of, in the statistical way of explanation, yeah. But in the spiritual realm, it may maybe happen. Anyway, so it's not easy for them, no matter what. Those type of image, those type of action still imprint in their mind. It's not easy for them to let go without having this kind of tools, mindfulness tools. It's not easy for them to handle their own mind. And all right, thank you, Emily. Yeah, Amber, number 2, please.
Yeah, so number 2 states, explain how mindfulness training is feasible in the pre-deployment context, and mindfulness practice may help service members who frequently engage in this practice improve their military functions. So what I had said for this question is that there are many stressors that military service members have to face before, during, and after deployment. And some of the stressors that they face pre-deployment is separation from their family, anxiety, distress, either from being separated from their family or from thinking about what they have to do, like once they're deployed, about what they may face, and experiencing these negative thoughts and emotions place them at a higher risk for developing mental issues such as PTSD, substance abuse, and depression after deployment and once they come back home. And some other stressors that can occur either during deployment or afterwards include combat exposure, difficult living conditions, and being exposed to training military service members in mindfulness and training them or teaching them how to manage stress more effectively before their deployment can help them function more effectively during deployment and alleviate the long-term health effects they may experience after their deployment. So it won't stop them from getting like PTSD or having symptoms of depression, but it will help lessen the blow of those and they won't suffer as much from them. Elizabeth A. Stanley and her colleagues, who were the authors of the article that I had read based on this, tested this belief by developing a mindfulness program that tailored specifically to pre-deployment military service members, which was called Mindfulness-Based Mind Fitness Training, or MMFT. They had to do some adaptations to the program. It was originally centered around MBSR, but due to time constraints and just the ongoing training that military service members have to do already, they had to adjust it a little bit. The first adaptation they made to mindfulness training was that they made the training a requirement for service members, and they integrated the training into their members, the members' already ongoing training. So along with combat training or communication, they would also have to do some mindfulness exercises or meditation. The second adaptation they did was they had to make the training more applicable to the military mission. And this was done to motivate service members and help them not be as resistant to participating in mindfulness meditation. So they would, along with teaching them mindfulness or meditation, they would teach them ways for how they can apply those mindfulness skills that they're learning to their mission or whatever they need to do once they are deployed. And the last adaptation they did was they exposed service members to stressors that they may experience during deployment. So, like I had said earlier, combat exposure, human suffering, to help promote stress resilience. So instead of going into deployment blind or going into it thinking the absolute worst, with this mindfulness training, they're able to get an idea of what they could possibly face and how they could handle those, what they do face. Let's see. And the results of Stanley and her colleagues' study had found that service members who were a part of MMFT had increased levels of mindfulness, improved functioning, and were better able to modulate their stress. So they're better able to regulate it and control it compared to service members who were not in who were not a part of that program. And despite the fact that in-class meditation training was very short, especially when it was compared to other programs like civilian programs like NBSR, and the stress that service members faced increased over time. So it wasn't them learning how to deal with stress, and it was they were constantly being faced with other stressors. The service members still experienced the life-changing benefits of practicing mindfulness and that anyone else would experience if they had practiced any other program, like NBSR, NBCT. And the and also afterwards, once those military service members came back, they felt more confident and in control and more comfortable with how they handled the stress that they had experienced during deployment and how to not and how to express themselves more effectively than those who came back from deployment and they were not exposed to the MMFT.
So in this article, they talk about the difference approaches between the MT for civilians and the MT for military servicemen, right? Different. What's the different approaches then?
So with the MT for civilians, it's more, for one, they have a lot more time to get used to meditation, to mindfulness, and the skills that they learn is meant to be applied for anything that they go through. While with, and it's more of just like a general application, like they're learning it so they can handle any stressors that they face throughout their life, and just to help them alleviate some stress they feel from work or any other like family drama or anything like that. While the MT for the military service members was more focused on how these mindfulness skills could be applied to them during deployment and afterwards, instead of just like, oh, you can use this whenever you feel like or whenever you're stressed. It was more oriented towards a goal for them to achieve. And also the sessions were a lot shorter, and a lot of it required the service members to do meditation outside of their training or outside of their assigned training. So it was really up to them whether they wanted to continue pursuing meditation and mindfulness training. And the members that did pursue that, they saw significant improvements in how they handled stress, and decrease in severity of like PTSD symptoms and depression symptoms. And the skills those mindfulness skills they learned, they in order to make them more willing to go through mindfulness training and actually sit down and meditate. They had to teach the members how these skills can be applied to their mission. So give them more of a purpose for meditation. And the key thing that Stanley and her colleagues wanted to help the members, like the military service members, get out of their meditation was stress resilience. Instead of just learning ways or learning how to more effectively handle stress, they wanted them to be able to handle any stress that they face, like the human suffering or the combat exposure, to be more resilient to those when they are exposed to those stressors, and have them more focused in the present moment instead of just the constant suffering they're exposed to and the negative thoughts and emotions that may come with that. And yeah, it's just with the military, MT is just a lot shorter. It's more goal oriented, and it's more to improve stress resilience than alleviating stress.
Okay, thank you. So in this article, you see this here. So for the civilians MT intervention, so you can enroll in the program and you can do, like you say, according to your personal need, right? But for MT, the military servicemen, they need to put in the aspect of the unit organizational setting, ongoing training. So they have to incorporate the mindfulness in those type of training, not to do anytime that they like to do, because they in the service, right? And the power hierarchy too, right? So you have to address, like if you're a surgeon, you may you may practice some type of short meditation, or if you are lieutenant or whichever rank you have, they may provide different approaches, right? So that's why here depend upon personnel of different rank and position in the command hierarchy and so forth. So that's the main difference between the MT for civilian and MT for the military servicemen. And of course, yeah, you say correctly, as long as they have those couple of tools, they can apply, but still they need to follow that type of hierarchy, that kind of order and so forth. I'd like to show you this quick, it's only a couple of minutes. I think we have time. Yeah, it's less than 2 minutes video clip.
Mindfulness was something that was brought in by Flight Lieutenant Berryman. He goes, if you think you don't need mindfulness because you're too busy, you're the person that needs mindfulness. So when we're out there low flying, there's a lot to think about in the aircraft. If you're flying at 400 to 600 kilometers an hour, some of our flying is like 50 meters above the ground. You need to be wholly focused on that because you've really got about a 2 to 3 second window before you can catch any mistakes that you make. It's quite exciting, but it's also very, very dangerous. Mindfulness is something that can help with that, because you can imagine if you're flying low level and then you start worrying about maybe your fridge is broken or your rent might have gone up or you're getting evicted. You can't have those distractions occupying the front of your brain while you're trying to do all these really, really complex maneuvers. And for example, with the roulettes, you might be doing low flying, but you're also in the middle of a formation and there's a plane 3 meters either side of you, so you need to be really careful. But what we try and do is we just try and regather our thoughts. So a technique that you can use is you just focus on what is happening right now, what am I doing, what can I control, and then you just work out from there. Some of the techniques you learn out of flying, like being mindful and being able to wholly focus on a task that you're doing, is definitely applicable to not just flying. So if you're trying to work out major decisions or relationships and things like that, it's very good to be able to just get that focus and have a clear mind to be able to make decisions.
Oh, see that this guy pilot, right? This sometimes this life and death, right? If you have this destruction on the air, even in the battlefield. Okay, thank you, Amber. Yeah, number 4, Luke, please. Oh, 3 of you, huh? Go ahead, Luke, please.
Yeah, so number 4 asks, it says, discuss veterans can use, I guess that's weird, or that's worded weirdly. Discuss how veterans can use MBSR in dealing with their PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, effectively. So I found that mindfulness-based stress reduction, otherwise known as MBSR, it has a positive impact on sleep disorders, restlessness, and varying types of stress. And the program overall has been proven to reduce stress, anxiety, chronic pain, automatic thoughts, and different types of unhealthy eating behaviors. MBSR is considered a type of an awareness training program, which the programs kind of focus on mind training, which regulate and promote mental well-being. And MBSR is an 8-week educational course based on differing mindfulness techniques and meditation and stuff like that. And in the courses, what people do is they observe their thoughts and feelings without a sense of judging towards them, and they kind of just see them as events that have either happened in the past or events that are currently happening. And overall, just as the name implies, MBSR is meant to reduce the stress in people. So with the study, they took 62 individuals that were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder according to the DSM-4, and they were like split into 2 different groups. 31 of them were put into like a control group, and then the other 31 were put into an experimental group. And with the experimental group, they were actually given kind of like an MBSR related course where they did different cognitive exercises, mindfulness techniques, and they were tasked with doing like different types of meditative practices at home. And the cognitive group was just given like the typical treatment, which had psychiatrists and antidepressants and stuff like that. And what the results of the study found with the veterans that had PTSD that were a part of the experimental group was that their depression, dizziness, fatigue, tension, negative thoughts, dysfunctional attitudes, and anxiety from prior events, which is PTSD, they were significantly decreased at a greater rate in comparison with those that were a part of just the control group that were given help from psychiatrists and differing types of like drugs and antidepressants. And lastly, the study does note that the general mood of the veterans who were a part of the experimental group, it was increased when they engage in mindfulness, because what mindfulness aims to do is place people in the present moment and not worry about anything that's happened in the past or anything that they're anxious about in the future. And specifically with post-traumatic stress disorder, as what happens is people think of the past and think either, oh, this is going to happen again, or they get stressed out from what has happened in the past. It places them in the present moment, and they kind of just either don't think about it or just don't judge it, to where the stress that comes along with it just goes away.
So what do you take away from this article?
So mainly, as like kind of the last point I mentioned, with post-traumatic stress disorder specifically, as everything that comes with that has happened in the past, what it does with veterans or anyone rather that has had some sort of traumatic event is it places them in the presence, and it kind of makes them think, oh, I can't change what's happened in the past. It's already happened. And what I need to do is look at the present moment and potentially a little bit into the future and just think, you know, what can I do about it? Or how can I not think about it? And that helps them with their mood, and it helps them with their behavior and stuff like that.
Thank you. Yeah. Brandon, please.
Yeah, so the same question. So basically what everyone has been saying, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a very complex and complicated psychiatric disorder. And we know that for the service members or for the veterans, it comes from the repeated traumas that they face, like in combat. So gunfire, bombs, other people dying. It's a lot for these people to deal with, and so they, you know, get back here from service, and they're left with all of that trauma and baggage, and for like the good majority of their lives, it just comes back over and over again, like a flashback. And what the research has said, it can help with the intrusive thoughts and memories, because with PTSD, like that's all of those thoughts keep coming back over and over again, and it hinders your day-to-day life. So they found the MBSR has been, like what Luke said, keeping yourself in the present moment instead of your mind trying to wander back to the past to relive those traumas. It helps manage the flashbacks. So while it can't like prevent the flashbacks from happening, you are still aware that they happen and you're able to acknowledge it, but you're able to move on, and it's less distressing that way. And then a couple other things that help with hypervigilance. So people who suffer from PTSD are always in this fight or flight stage. They're always on edge, wondering what's going to happen next. And by practicing MBSR, you calm down and you relax and you get to that more present state. So where your mind's not wandering around so much, and it helps just, take the edge off just a little bit. And then finally, it can help with self-compassion and self-worth, and all of that together, combining with the MBSR, it just really helps your self-esteem. And also, sorry, the last thing, I think Luke talked about this as well, is that it really helps with sleep. A lot of times people who come back from combat have to take sleeping pills just to get through the night. If they have like nightmares or tremors or something going on, like they have to get medication to help them with that. And so it found that practicing MBSR and promoting relaxation can really help with sleep and reset your circadian rhythm and help those patterns and help people sleep.
Yeah, probably all of you would not have any war experience, right? Right. So yeah, imagine yourself, even when you watch the shooting or fighting movies, right? Or the servicemen, they always in alert mood, right? Because the enemy may shoot them anytime in any direction. They may drop the bombs on your head, so your lives hang on the thread any moment apply. And of course, that kind of trauma, right, carry on when they get back from battlefield, when they get back to the civilian life. That's why they have all kind of nightmare there. It's not easy. It's not easy to let go without doing meditation. All right, thank you, Brandon. Yeah, Casey, right? Yeah, please.
Yeah, so same question. So back to what they were saying, post-traumatic stress disorder is one of the most common disorders among veterans and is said to greatly impact anywhere from 20 to 30% across the country. And I just learned through watching the videos for the discussions that I think it said it impacts 6% of the population. So that's a pretty big number of people. And most people who suffer from PTSD actually don't have PTSD from war or from being in the military. Most people who have PTSD was because of, I think it said, an automobile accident, which could happen to anybody, of course. And it impacts people in a wide variety of ways. Like we were talking about, it includes vivid flashbacks, increased irritability, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating, and intense emotional outbursts, which are likely related to what Brendan was saying about how people with PTSD are constantly stuck in this fight or flight mechanism in their head. So either they're having intense angry outbursts, or they're extremely irritable, or they're having trouble sleeping because their body thinks they're in danger, or they're running away, or they're not able to concentrate. And all of these symptoms, of course, can lead to a decline in mental health and overall decrease your quality of life, as well as an inability to maintain and create meaningful relationships. Recently, mindfulness-based stress reduction has been looked into as a way to help those struggling with the impacts of this disorder, and has already been shown to have positive impacts by reducing, like Luke said, symptoms of depression, dizziness, fatigue, and tension in participants significantly. And those suffering with PTSD specifically, study shows that MBSR helps greatly those suffering with flashbacks. And this is due to the program helping them be mindful moment to moment and focus on their breathing, which can prevent these episodes from occurring, as well as decrease the severity of the anxiety and other negative effects felt. MSRB was also found to be an effective treatment for a wide range of people dealing with painful effects and thoughts, including those suffering from trauma-related events, PTSD. Veterans in the MBSR program also showed to have an increased self-reported quality of life and mindful behaviors and thoughts. The benefits of the program were also noted to be longer lasting than some of the other mindfulness-based programs. And I think they did checkups like at 2 or 3 months, and the people were still engaging in these practices and reaping the positive benefits of them. The teachings can be specifically used to help veterans detach themselves from their emotions and help them recover from their past. Mindfulness can also help those struggling with mental illness to become more present in the parts of life that do matter, such as time with family and time spent doing productive and self-improving habits, such as meditation exercises, or learning a new skill, or exercising. And these practices can also help veterans invest their time in habits that are going to improve their life rather than self-destructive ones. Like a lot of veterans suffer from alcohol abuse or substance abuse, or otherwise engage in violent behaviors, which could all hurt their mental state and make their symptoms of their PTSD worse, or other mental issues they may be suffering due to their time deployed. And these poor habits could lead to a wide variety of things, such as homelessness. Like we have an epidemic in this country of homeless veterans. And a lot of that is likely due to the fact that so many of them are suffering from the negative mental implications of being overseas and being at war and seeing things that are super hard to forget. So it ends up being hard for them to find a job because they're engaging in all these self-destructive habits, and that leads to them being homeless. And when you are homeless and on the street, that makes it harder to regulate your emotions. So you're going to again turn to these self-destructive habits, and it's just a cycle. And MBSR has shown through countless studies to help many demographics of people, we've been reading about it all semester, alleviate symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD, chronic pain, grief, and just general stress. And mindfulness practices can be a crucial part of the recovery of veterans and assist them on their path to a long, healthy, and meaningful life.
So let's say if you are a psychologist, right? Now you work now on New Albany or Jeffersonville or Louisville or downtown Jeffersonville and so forth, and you see some of them, how to approach and convince them, hey, try meditation so that you can calm your mind, you can sleep better, you can let go of your nightmare. How could you convince them on the street?
Convince homeless people?
Absolutely, the vet homeless people.
It's definitely hard to convince people of all these psychological needs that they have when their physical needs aren't being met. Like these people that are living on the street. They don't have a bed to sleep in. They don't have food to eat. They don't have clean water to drink. So of course they're not really going to be worried about what's going to improve their mental health. They're worried about getting food in their belly and, having somewhere warm to sleep. So I think being able to be mindful is such a privilege that first we need to get these people off the streets before we could even really begin to touch on that. I feel like that's such a far leap ahead from where many of them are at, unfortunately.
But nowadays we have to deal with this type of homelessness around the country, right? Most every big city. Yeah, that you're right. You have to address that type of survival first before helping them to deal with their mental health, right? So you would take them to the shelter first?
I mean, I would definitely suggest it, but a lot of people who are on the streets, they're on the streets because they don't want to go to a shelter. And I'm not sure what the reasons for that are. I'm very fortunate. I've never been in a situation like that. But a lot of people don't want to go to shelters. I'm not sure if it's because I'm not sure what the reasons are, but
Lexis, you know the reason?
A lot of people, there's like not rooms at shelters. You can only like stay like a night or two, and there's a lot of stealing that goes on at shelters. So if you have any like personal belongings that you have and you take with you, even if you're like safe at the shelter, some of that stuff can get taken from you by other people who are there. So there's a lot of people who don't want to go to the shelters because they have these belongings that they don't want to have taken from them. And then they also might just not be able to go to shelters because they don't have enough room. That's a big issue in Louisville around the hospitals, and then in Jeffersonville, I live in downtown Jeff, and you can just see a whole bunch of tents around, especially at this time whenever it's starting to get colder. But those are the main reasons.
There's some issue that relate to how they deal with each other too, right? There's some kind of personal conflict, right? And some of them, they don't want to follow the rules when you go to the shelters. Several reasons too. Again, it's not easy when they're on the street. All right, since we have time, let me show you guys this short video clips about the vets utilize MBSR. Yeah.
These veterans are using mindfulness-based meditation to help manage PTSD symptoms.
Becoming aware of the wandering mind.
Mindfulness is a type of technique that allows one to be more aware of what one is experiencing.
To be present and aware of their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences in a non-judgmental and accepting way.
For veterans John, Jeff, and Janae, this was an unfamiliar way to help with their PTSD symptoms.
I was skeptical. I didn't see how it could help me with my problems.
If you can envision a California freeway at night, that's the type of traffic I had in my head.
I thought it was hogwash, to tell you the truth. I didn't think it would be beneficial, but obviously all the other stuff I was trying wasn't really working.
Doctors Melissa Paluzny and Kelvin Lim and their colleagues at the Minneapolis VA Medical Center wanted to determine if the mindfulness intervention could help. 116 veterans with a diagnosis of PTSD participated in the trial. Half the group completed 9 weeks of mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy. The other had group therapy focusing on current life problems. The veterans were monitored before, during, and after treatment.
Does he have any rituals at home? Does he check the locks?
Then also 2 months after completing therapy.
There was a greater improvement with the mindfulness or meditation intervention, but this was a moderate change.
The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
Mindfulness skills were significantly associated with greater improvements in PTSD symptoms and quality of life at the 2-month follow-up.
I don't feel like I'm treading water anymore. And I feel mindfulness has brought me back to who I am and who my family can enjoy again.
I wish I would have had the opportunity when I was a young man to been able to have this resource. I would have been a completely different person today.
I feel peace. And that has been a situation which has escaped me in the 40 years since I was last in combat.
Catherine Dolph, The JAMA Report.
Okay, so you see that this will affect you, right, for them. And of course, like you say, right, Jesse, is for the one who came back from the war, but they still have the job, they still have families, right? It's more suitable for them, but not for the homeless vet, right? Just unfortunately, it's not easy for them to handle. All right, so Lexis, you are the last one, please, number 6.
All right, number 6 is describe how Swedish members of parliament and British parliaments of both houses of Commons and Lords have been utilizing MBCT and other mindfulness-based treatments to improve their attention, impulse control, kindness, metacognition, etc. since 2013. So this article talked about how 2 members of the House of Commons and Lords started the first mindfulness course in for their legislatures to take part in 2013, and it was Anne-Marie Broden and Chris Ron, and it was adapted from the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy model, and it lasted 8 weeks. More initiatives were then formed over the next years to come in 2016 with the Mindfulness and Social Change event and in 2017 with the first Mindfulness in Politics Day that had a whole bunch of different countries that actually participated in it. And it was seen that there were positive changes in the workplace for these politicians and how they talk to each other. And it was more of a conducive environment for them to be able to work better together and be able to share their own opinions. And it also helped them to be more sympathetic to other people's struggles and want to help them through their policies that they were making. So when looking at how it improved their attention, these legislators are having to consume large amounts of information every single day and also make sure that they actually understand it. And they get many different types of information, like through information briefs that are multiple page papers, information that comes from the newsfeed, social media, and then also talking and discussing other members' problems that they have. Some members stated that whenever they took this course, that it improved their concentration and helped them to be able to perform better. For impulse control, it is very important for these people since they're constantly in the public eye, and they're people that the general public looks at for kind of a standard of excellence that everyone else is supposed to emulate, since they are members of their parliament. So they have adopted this respond instead of react, and so they take a second to think about what these people are asking them or whatever situation is going on, and then respond instead of just having their knee-jerk reaction, which is what many people do, especially whenever there are high emotional questions that are asked of them, which happens a lot. So since they're also in the public eye so often, it's really important for them to take a second, take a step back, and see how their response is going to affect other people and if it's the right thing for them to do in this scenario. It also, they said that they were able to better self-regulate their emotions instead of giving into them in the heat of the moment. Kindness is very important for these leaders because they need to be able to show empathy for the people who they're making decisions for. And it's important for them to also have self-compassion and be able to give themselves grace when they do make mistakes, because everyone is human and everyone makes mistakes. They also need to be able to put themselves in other people's shoes so that they can see why these public issues are public issues, even if it doesn't affect them. And mindfulness was able to help them so that they could become like a neutral observer of these social issues. And then the last one that I brought up was the metacognition, and it's one of the main pieces of mindfulness practice. And it helps people put themselves and their actions into perspective with the world around them. So it also helps them to, it kind of has them think about what they're thinking. So it helps them define what they're thinking and how it's going to be received by other people, and helps them make more empathetic decisions whenever they're discussing public policy, and also helps them to be less defensive about their views and be able to listen to other people's ideas and take those into account whenever they're making decisions on matters that may not affect them personally.
Okay, so thank you. So what do you take away from those politicians that utilize mindfulness practice?
I think it was very helpful for them to bring this to Parliament, because it talked about how they were afraid that other people were going to maybe judge them for bringing it to everyone else, but so many people actually wanted to take part in it, and it grew to be such a big thing that it wasn't even just the Swedish Parliament or the British Parliament. It was many other different countries that were adopting these practices, and having it be a day that they celebrated every single year instead of just having it be optional. So it was more, it made a really big impact on how they were able to communicate with each other also.
Yeah, in politics, you have to fight almost every day, right? To fight for your people, to fight for your position, and so forth, right? And do you know why somehow not many U.S. politicians utilize meditation or mindfulness practice? You know why?
They do a lot of reacting instead of responding.
No, I mean, that's why. The reason why not many U.S. politicians like senators, congressmen, and so forth utilize mindfulness practice than the European one.
I don't know.
Anyone know? Anyone have idea? No. Okay, let me share with you this video clip first. Okay, we still have time. You guys recognize him? Tim Ryan? You don't recognize him?
Put it on and off with different kinds of meditation really my whole life. And I knew the days I did it, that I was calmer, more focused. It comes in pretty handy as a congressman in 2016 in America. There's so much conflict and there's so much pressure around getting things done or not getting things done. It's about training your mind to be in the present moment. We started about 5 years ago. And when we started, it's social emotional learning and some breathing and awareness, mindfulness-based practices. So we're seeing a dramatic shift in the kids' ability to self-regulate, to catch themselves before they do something stupid, which, you know, kids are inclined to do if you don't teach them the proper skills on how to handle their emotions. And these are the basic skills that they need for learning. So we're starting to see math scores improve, reading scores improve, and it all stems from their ability to regulate their own emotional state. So pushing this out in the schools, I think, really, to me, is part of the Common Core of the 21st century.
Okay, so here probably one of the positions that New Zealand might practice, but not like many European counterparts. So I have another clip here. This one here.
Organization states that by 2030, the biggest health burden on the whole of the planet will be depression. There's a tsunami of mental ill health that is sweeping the world, especially the Western world. We're in Europe and North America. And we politicians have to say, have we got the policies? Have we got the practice, the best practice to face this tsunami of ill health? In the UK, antidepressants usage has shot up. There were 9 million antidepressant prescriptions issued in 1991. Today, it's 65 million. We need more measures than just antidepressants. Antidepressants have their place, but we need a wider, more interventions that can help people cope with the stresses and strains of 21st century living. And mindfulness is an important part of that. It has been accepted in the UK National Health Service since 2004. For the past 13 years, it's been freely available on the UK National Health Service. The science has been proven. And what we've done in health, we now need to do in education to prove the science and the benefits of mindfulness on young minds. So let's look at the science, let's look at the best policies in our own countries and other countries around the world and use them for the benefit of our people.
Okay, so you see that they implement in the national scale since 2004. Yeah, here we have some implementation in the school, but not much in politics, right? Okay, so that's all. So Lexis, when we come back on November 30, are you ready for you? Okay, you are the one that will present. One more time, what's the topic, Lexis?
It will be how mindfulness can be used in like with relationship issues.
Where?
So like the MBSR.
Where? In which aspect? In which profession?
Like in romantic like relationships.
Oh, romantic. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's so feasible for you guys, right? When you have girlfriends, boyfriend, how you deal with them, right? In the healthy way. That's wonderful. We look forward to hear from you. And Dr. Rebecca will be here too. Yeah, to listen to you. All right. So